Just a little disclaimer, I'm not really going to explain the way the map works here because we did that in another video, so the top link in the description will be me explaining everything about this new Borderlands if you've never heard of it, but this video is going to be my impressions of actually playing it for today. Hey guys, so it's been a pretty long night. It's 2:30 in the morning as I talk to you, but I wanted to throw out some impressions of what's been going on for those of you out of the loop. The World vs. World stress test for the new Borderlands coming with Heart of Thorns was today. It was an invite-only event that I got to attend along with Matt Visual and a whole bunch of other people, actual World vs. Worlders out there too. I think some of the more prominent guilds out there from T1 servers or even lower were actually allowed to come in, and we got to kind of run around the map, see it for the first time since it appeared on a Points of Interest stream a long time ago, like episode 30 of Points of Interest. So I wanted to give you guys my impressions of it. Now, I will clarify right at the start here, I'm not a huge World vs. Worlder. I talk about that openly on the channel very much, and so I'm not going to really try commenting too much on the balance of the map. Specifically as well, I would like to point out to people there weren't really that many people there, not by the end. The test was 4 hours long. The first hour, it seemed jam-packed. There seemed like there were a whole lot of players around, and it was a lot of fun to wander around exploring the map with Matt Visual rather than be zerging. But then around after an hour, I ended up with the outnumbered debuff on me, and as things went along, even over these just 4 hours, less and less people appeared until by the very end, we were doing the giant Oasis event in the center of the map, which I'll talk about very soon, and there wasn't really any opposition at all. There were a couple of devs around still, and the event kind of closed very quietly. So I'm not sure whether they didn't invite enough people. Maybe they just wanted their first stress test to be very small scale, and they'll do bigger ones. Obviously, they're going to have to do bigger ones as time moves forward. And this is quite an important thing because it means a lot of the footage you'll be seeing over the coming weeks of this stress test, you know, some of it can seem quite empty. World vs. World already, the Borderlands are fairly big maps, but because of the way a lot of people are incentivized to zerg and blob together a lot, really what you find is it's often incredibly empty, except a few areas where there's like 3 giant zergs running around. You know, one guild queues the map up, and that's kind of all you see. And then aside from that, there'll be the odd scout in a couple of towers and other locations. This map is much, much bigger than the other Borderlands, or at least it feels that way. The verticality, the flow of the map, the fact that it's not all just open fields, you can run in like a one long line and get from one end to the other. You've got a lot more moving around, you've got a lot more ups, you've got a lot more downs. The locations that you capture are much more vast. Like, to compare a new keep to an old keep is almost laughable. The old keeps were what, like a couple of rooms, a couple of walls, and that's it. The fire keep, as you'll see in the footage in the background, the air keep, the earth keep, these things are enormous with tons of rooms and long progressions to get through them. So because this map is now so big, now that's a very exciting thought. It also means now, if the new map just still encourages, you know, a couple of large zergs and that's it, and very little activity elsewhere, we're actually just going to have these huge maps that feel devastatingly empty. This stress test, as I say, was quite small scale, so it kind of felt a little bit like that at times. So there were the odd roamers and people running around testing their builds out. As for builds, I really wasn't running a real build at all. The way this test worked, for those of you guys who don't really participate in this stuff or you don't know, it was actually on a separate client completely, and on this client you kind of load into a room that looks like the inside of Stone Mist Castle, and you could speak to a bunch of vendors to set up your build. This is the best one ArenaNet have done so far. Like, there's a lot of food to buy, there's a lot of stuff, but there was still only a few stat sets of gear available, and when you picked, for example, like tanky gear, which is what I did, I ended up with power, precision, toughness gear. I ended up with Dolyak runes, which are just awful, and you know, it gives you those specific weapons. So I was kind of running around there with what I wanted to be a build that had fair mobility, so it was a dagger elementalist build with a fiery greatsword, and was fairly tanky, so if people did continue to attack me, I could just move past them and get you guys footage of the map and what it looked like, and that's largely what I did. I did lose a couple of 1v1s or even 2v1s while I was running around with my friend World of Enders, but really, you know, you're not going to do so well when you're running around with a Flesh Reaver sigil in the first place. So, what's there to talk about? The main thing I found myself saying when I was playing with Matt Visual on the stream is kind of touristy. Wow, this looks so pretty. The map is gorgeous. It is far and beyond the prettiest damn map I've played, including Verdant Brink. Okay, this thing looks freaking amazing. Unfortunately, there were 2 night cycles while we were playing. It was kind of night when we started, and then we had a little bit of day, and unfortunately during a lot of that daytime I was underground in the fire keep, and then it was night again, so a lot of it's kind of dark, but while the sun's out, my god, I was really in my element. Absolutely beautiful map, and it really I found the main thing, particularly with how good the map looks and the enemies within it got me very excited and curious about the way Heart of Thorns would look like. Some of these areas we were going to in the Borderlands were very open. They were kind of flat field type areas, and I know many people, not just myself, have been a bit worried about Heart of Thorns because it seems all the new maps they're adding are supposed to be really dense and have, you know, all these triple layers of stuff going on, and you wouldn't get that feel that we once upon a time got in, say, Queensdale, where you would be out in these long fields and it was kind of a bit more relaxed and you'd explore, and you kind of got that feeling in the new Borderlands too. And it just made me think, wow, you know, when we're actually out in the real world, they're using these assets from Heart of Thorns. It's kind of like a preview and a mix together of all the Heart of Thorns stuff that got me very excited about the expansion itself. And the enemies too, as I mentioned. Yes, around the map there are a few of your standard enemies. You might find a bear or a wolf here or there, but then there's a bunch of new Heart of Thorns enemies too. There is a hero challenge on the map that's to destroy a small version of the Wyvern. You know that boss fight they were talking about way back in February? Yeah, he's there as just like a regular hero challenge. There's a champion version too that has the break bar mechanic on it. Will fly off and you can drag him down, or he'll paint the ground with fire around you. Around the oasis in the center of the map, it's populated by these giant dinosaurs, and they're all really fun to fight. They're not all like crazy challenges, but you actually focus on what different enemies do. It is not the same as fighting a couple of bandits that do like one auto attack every 2 seconds and then maybe do a dodge roll. These dinosaurs do a variety of different things. You got dinosaurs that kind of roll around on their sides to try and flatten you and you want to dodge away from it. You got dinosaurs that charge you and do big damage and knock down. In fact, I was fighting against a thief in the Oasis at one point. We accidentally drew aggro on like 1 or 2 dinosaurs, and the dinosaurs just punting us around in the middle of a fight. The thief was okay, managed to stealth and get away, but the dinosaurs managed to contribute to that fight enough that it completely changed the flow of the way I was dealing with that 1v1, and ultimately ended up losing it. If they were trying to make it so that even just the most basic little bits of content, like fighting monsters, like walking around, are now slightly more engaging, they've definitely hit that mark. And it doesn't just come down to the map itself either. It comes down to little things like the fact Superior Siege all have like new models now. Like a Superior Treb looks friggin' unbelievable. For like 1 second I managed to get on one as a tower was being attacked and I managed to fire it. Have awesome, gorgeous animations, and just everything's generally a treat to look at. So yeah, for the first hour I've basically been saying this type of stuff. I was running around tourist style saying, "Ooh, this is so pretty, look at the waterfalls, look how amazing everything is." In fact, it kind of occurred to me that this map is so much better than what we already have, the Alpine Borderlands. I, once upon a time, was saying, oh, we could have an environment where, and yes, this has got its own inherent flaws to do with this idea, but I was looking at the idea of, oh, we've got this new desert borderland, maybe another expansion we'll get another borderland, and one day we'll have like the Alpine Borderland, the desert borderland, and a different one all running at the same time. But this map is so far beyond what the Alpine Borderland offers. It just seems like that can never happen, because the quality in the gameplay and the way everything looks and the terrain and the flow of the map is just that they're on 2 different worlds. That's the kind of experience we're having here. But yeah, so, you know, we can talk till we're blue in the face about how pretty the map looks, but we all know that ultimately that's going to fade away. We're not going to be paying attention to that so much, and what really matters is the mechanics. How does the game actually play, and how do the new objectives contribute to the flow of the map? I can't speak too intelligently on this, as I said, for several reasons. One, I'm not super versed in like high-end world versus world stuff. Second, the map was kind of small scale. I will say, my experience of wandering around in the new Borderlands felt, while I was in a Zerg, felt an awful lot like my experience when I'm running around in EBG on some kind of a Tacoma train. Ultimately, we weren't aggressed by any other group, so I never really got to experience any of these big fights. I never got to experience how people will set up siege, and how people will bait one another into chokes, and how people will use the new mechanics at their disposal, how they'll be able to teleport around in the fire keep, how they'll be able to set up ambushes in the sandstorm around the earth keep, how they'll be able to flee from the scene with immune to full damage stuff in the air keep. None of that stuff was really anything I experienced here, but at least killing the random NPCs and things in the towers was somewhat different. You know, the Lich that we killed in the Undead Tower was still kind of quick to go down, but when I was trying to take that tower on my own and I was trying to fight the bone minions guarding the gates, it was kind of cool to see that they were like permanently taunting me and they were spitting gunk all over the area. Just the NPCs themselves and their variety of abilities has changed the way it feels to run around in the map. Some specific things to point out about my experience. The Firekeep, I spent a fair amount of time when I finally had control of it, when we had all of the shrines. I had this really cool moment where I was super deep in the keep in the final room where the Lord was, and in the background there's this gorgeous pool of lava and a giant lava fall behind there. And I stood there for ages wondering, I wonder if there's something hidden behind that. I wonder if I can go out there and there's something hidden, but I'm probably going to die if I go in the lava. And then in the end I realized, oh god, wait, I'm in the fire keep. I'm immune to the lava. And I walked out in there. It felt really weird and surreal to be wandering around. And at one point in the air keep, I realized, oh yeah, I'm immune to fall damage. I was being chased down by a mesmer at one point, so I hid by the little air turrets, and what do you know, he managed to get pushed off, saving my life as he fell to his death. These moments were really cool. Firekeep also has the Hounds of Balthazar. Spent a while in that. It was interesting to me that as a Hound of Balthazar, you can turn yourself invulnerable, and this actually had synergy with my Elementalist cantrip trait, so I actually like this kind of content. I like that one class's trait can actually impact to transform like this, perhaps a little more than others. You know, it's kind of similar to how Condi builds historically were really good, or like warriors who could lengthen the duration of their bleeds and do more, were kind of better on ACs because they could get more use, more mileage out of the AC shot that would do bleed damage. That kind of stuff's fun, and I like the idea that there are actually things on my regular build that impact these transforms. You know, that's the reason why underwater combat is kind of boring, but maybe I'm getting a little off the scope. That was fun, running around in the Oasis as a Hound of Balthazar, seeing the abilities. It feels very strong, you get very tanky, but quite limited too, and easy to play around because it is, as it's attacking, it's very immobile, so you kind of get the leap, but your auto-attack roots you in place, and you have to sort of very slowly throw out the projectiles. But I guess in big groups, it could be a really, really fun thing to run around as. The Earthkeep, I didn't spend too much time around. The Sandstorm really obscures your vision, and it's an awful lot like the Dry Top Sandstorm in that it's pretty for a few minutes, and then you're like, damn, this is really kind of blurry, and I wanted to see the true beauty of the map as much as I could. I wasn't really jumped by anyone in stealth in the Sandstorm. I didn't spend much time in the keep itself. I will say that the rock walls getting thrown up as you're wandering around in the little cripple turrets, they're awesome. They sound really cool on paper. They looked really cool on the stream that we all watched. To sit there and actually play it, and when you wander around, one of these friggin' giant rocks comes up in front of you and you can't move, and it really did for a little while feel very maze-like. It's like, oh god, how do I get out? This friggin' wall just appeared, and now I've got to walk all the way around. I wonder if another wall is going to drop up too. So I like the idea that as people get better at the map, they'll start to be able to know where these rock walls are, and maybe, you know, take safe roads without having to trigger any of these traps. I did manage to break out of the map. It was actually very easy. There's a few things about the map that seem very work in progress. In the Oasis in the center on these steps, like you're like merge into the steps as you're walking up it. You're clearly just on the slope and you kind of clip through the ground quite severely. Near the spawn of the team I was on, you guys will see footage of this right now, I just kind of walked into a small cliff, and there was a really obvious hole, and I walked through the hole, and oh look, I've broken out of the map. I'm not sure how much of this stuff is here. I even found a, like, with World of Enders, we found like a floating invisible platform at one point that we just jumped onto, and oh hey, this is just randomly here. Of course, all this stuff I'm expecting to be patched out by the time the map comes in, and there should be more changes too. One of the earliest things I was asking about was, hey, is there a jumping puzzle? Of course, the old Borderlands had a jumping puzzle in the top left, and a lot of stuff's preserved. The towers' positions are preserved. The keeps are generally preserved too. The scrit in the top left of the old Borderlands, there's scrit in the top left of these ones. But is there a jumping puzzle? Apparently not. It does sound like it's being planned, maybe, but it had been disabled for this test, maybe because they wanted people to really fight and stress the servers more than just wander around like a stupid tourist, which I'll openly admit is basically all I did. Last of all, let's talk about the Oasis event. It's the event that pops once every now and then. You kill a bunch of dinosaurs in the central area, they drop orbs, you carry the orbs to collection NPCs, one for each server, and the server that gets the most orbs quickest will gain control of the Sky Splitter Cannon, this great big monument in the center of the map that will destroy all like wooden outer gates, or if they're like reinforced gates, it will do a percentage of damage to them, and kind of is a big comeback mechanic for the map. So if one server owns like tons of the map, then you as a small group can kind of go around, kill these dinosaurs, get the Sky Splitter going, and then, you know, do a lot of damage across the whole map, and your Zerg can hit pretty much anywhere you like, I guess is the idea. And obviously that element, the comeback element of it, didn't really see. Not many people were playing by the time I finally got to see it. Did look a bit at the animations. Seemed a little bit lackluster to me. You know, it's supposed to be this giant cannon that destroys everything on the map, and you kind of really have to look up. There wasn't much of a big kicking sound effect, and maybe this is my fault for turning it off, but there wasn't some satisfying, like, crunchy screen shake every time it fired. There wasn't energy pulsing up from around the pillars to coalesce before exploding into the sky. It was just kind of these little poofy effects, but I really like the idea of that central mechanic, which of course will be replacing the Borderlands Bloodlust. So those, I think, are the biggest things I took away from this stress test. You will be seeing footage of it in full throughout the coming videos when I do Q&As and stuff like that. There will be me running around in there. If any of you guys also managed to play, I'd love to hear what you thought of it in the comments, and those of you who didn't manage to play, go down there as well and check it out, just in case anyone did. We'll try and thumb them up as much as possible. Maybe the perspective of someone who does World vs. World a lot, or was in some of these big zergs. Be very curious, but man, if I say anything, it's if this is the quality of the Heart of Thorns maps coming up, Guild Wars 2 is definitely pushing in a really, really good direction. Anyway, cheers guys, hope you had a good day. I'm gonna go to sleep. Catch you next time.
Feel my turbulence!